Welcome to Insights. I'm Adam Rivers.
And I'm Sarah Collins. In this episode, we'll reflect carefully on the Quran verse by verse, focusing on wording, context, and coherence.
Yeah, and we've got an incredible one today.
We really do. I mean, for those of you joining us for the first time, our mission here on Insights is to extract profound, life-altering wisdom from Revelation and, make it highly applicable to your reality today.
Exactly, bridging that gap.
Right. We want to bridge the gap between ancient Revelation and the modern world. Now, just to connect the dots for you, let's quickly remind ourselves of where we left off in our previous discussion.
Well, that was a heavy one.
It was. We were exploring the awe-inspiring story of the start of creation and humanity's father, Adam. We unpacked that heavy cosmic responsibility of stewardship.
Right, the concept of istiklaf.
Exactly, that profound concept placed squarely upon human shoulders. We also discussed how the angels themselves questioned human nature, pointing out our terrifying potential for corruption.
Which is valid, honestly.
Very valid. But ultimately, they acknowledged our immense capacity for knowledge. It was this massive, macro-level, universal view of human purpose.
It really was. And that brings us directly to today's verse, which is Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 40. I'm going to read the translation of the verse clearly for you before we begin breaking it down.
Please do.
Okay, it says, O children of Israel, remember my favor which I have bestowed upon you, and fulfill my covenant upon you, that I will fulfill your covenant from me and be afraid of only me.
Wow.
Yeah. So after spending all this time in the celestial realms discussing Adam, the angels, the dawn of creation, my opening question for you is simply this. Why the sudden shift from discussing the grand cosmic dawn of humanity to addressing a very specific historical group of people?
Right. It feels like a massive pivot.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, to understand this, we have to look at how reflecting on the Quran constantly opens up these vast horizons of universal and social laws. The transition we see here, moving from Adam's cosmic story to directly addressing the children of Israel, it's actually a brilliant methodological shift.
How so?
Well, it is a deliberate move from macro theory to a highly practical historical model. I mean, think about it realistically.
Yeah.
With Adam, we were given the overarching theory of humanity's purpose, right? The ultimate wide-angle lens on our existence. But pure theory is, well, it's kind of sterile until it is tested in the messy, complicated reality of the world.
That makes sense. Theory needs application.
Exactly. So the revelation intentionally zooms in. This specific historical model was chosen to serve as a mirror. It is a mirror designed for any nation or any individual carrying a divine message to see the raw, unfiltered consequences of gratitude versus betrayal.
Let me interrupt you right there, because the mere concept. I have to push back a little, because if the goal is to teach a universal law about gratitude, why use a specific group?
It's a fair question.
Right. I mean, for you listening, it is quite shocking to realize that this isn't just historical recounting. It's a direct, live reflection for our current societies.
Yeah, it takes the lofty concept of human stewardship and just grounds it in a real-world case study.
So moving from that, I mean, what about the specific phrasing of that opening address?
Right. Well, before I give you the answer to that, let me ask you this. What do you think humans tend to do the moment they achieve success?
Oh, take all the credit.
Exactly. But let's look at the name first. The intimate call here, O children of Israel, it's so specific. It skips generic religious or ethnic labels entirely.
It does.
Instead, it invokes the righteous father, Prophet Yaqub, who is Israel. It does this to evoke pure roots and monotheism. It's saying, remember where you came from.
A reminder of a legacy.
Yes, but belonging to a legacy isn't a free pass. It's not a get-out-of-jail-free card, It is a massive moral responsibility. And the word children implies this generational continuity.
Meaning it gets passed down.
Right. The covenant doesn't die with the ancestors. It's a heavy trust requiring constant renewal by the children.
Wait, I really want to highlight that. It is a shocking realization that pride in one's religious or historical lineage is actually a massive burden of duty.
It really is.
It's not an excuse for complacency at all. So what is the very first instruction given following this heavy identity awakening call?
Well, going back to my counter question, what do humans do when they succeed? They rewrite the narrative to make themselves the sole heroes, right? So the instruction here is profound to counteract that. It is simply remember, or in Arabic, udkuru.
Remember.
Yeah. But in the framework of the Quran, remembrance is never just a passive mental recall of, like, a trivia fact. It is a state of continuous awareness.
Not just remembering a date in history.
No, it is a profound spiritual wakefulness that guards your heart against the illusion of absolute independence. And we really have to contrast this with the concept of forgetting.
Okay, how does the verse define forgetting?
In this context, forgetting is not biological amnesia. It's not misplacing your keys. Forgetting here is defined as a deliberate, arrogant ignoring of reality. The revelation points out that remembering actively prevents tyranny.
Wait, remembering prevents tyranny. That is a profound psychological insight.
It is. Because human beings have this deeply flawed, natural tendency to rebel and become tyrannical the moment they feel entirely self-sufficient.
I mean, for you listening, I want you to reflect on times you attributed your success purely to your own hustle. That forgetting is a form of arrogance.
Absolutely. And look at the intimacy of the grammar here. My favor and I bestowed.
First person.
Right. The Creator uses the first person to entirely remove any material middlemen. It forces the human being to look directly at the true source of all their blessings, bypassing their own ego.
So, if the mechanics of this remembrance are designed to shatter the ego, what exactly is this favor they are commanded to remember?
Well, let me counter that by asking you and everyone listening, what do you consider to be true wealth in a world that can collapse at any moment?
Oh, wow. I guess stability? Purpose?
Exactly. You see, the favor mentioned here is not merely food, water, or basic material security. The revelation is talking about something much deeper.
Something structural.
Yes. It is the blessing of guidance. It is salvation from generational enslavement and systemic oppression. And perhaps most importantly, it is the immense favor of being chosen to carry monotheism in a really dark era of idolatry.
That's a huge responsibility.
It is. We have to understand that in the Quranic worldview, divine favors are not VIP privileges handed out for entertainment.
They aren't luxury upgrades.
No, they are tools for testing. This favor is inextricably connected to the concept of the covenant, the mithaq. The logic is simple but severe. You cannot possibly fulfill a covenant if you suffer from deliberate amnesia regarding who saved you in the first place.
That completely flips the human understanding of privilege on its head. I want to emphasize that shocking fact divine favors are actually tests.
They absolutely are.
We are so socially conditioned to see blessings as a finish line, but they are actually a starting line for a heavily graded test. So how does this internal memory translate into actual behavior and law?
Well, imagine you're entering into a legally binding contract where your very survival depends on the terms. What does that require of you?
Strict adherence, I would assume.
Exactly. And this brings us to the central axis of the verse. Fulfill my covenant.
This isn't a gentle suggestion, you know. It is the fundamental principle governing heaven and earth.
It's the core framework.
Right, it's a strict moral exchange. The Arabic word used implies deep legal and moral implications. But here is the most profound reality.
What is it?
The Creator, who is entirely self-sufficient, deliberately steps down to make a fair, transparent, and binding contract with weak human beings.
Wow.
Yeah. And fulfilling it means practical actions in the real world. It means establishing justice, helping the oppressed, sincere worship, and actually building the earth.
Just hearing the mechanics of that fills me with awe. The concept of God deliberately limiting his interaction with humans to a transparent contract. It treats humanity with such immense dignity.
It really respects human agency.
It does. But any valid contract has two sides. What is the Creator's end of the bargain?
To grasp the divine response, we have to ask ourselves, what does absolute, uncorrupted cosmic justice look like?
I can't even imagine. Well, the divine promise is laid out clearly in the next phrase. I will fulfill yours. This operates like a precise mathematical equation in both spiritual and social terms.
Condition and response.
Exactly. The explanation here is that God's promise of victory, care, and ultimate salvation is strictly tied to human commitment. It completely destroys any illusions of racial superiority or divine favoritism.
No VIP passes.
None. If a nation breaks the conditions, the covenant falls apart, regardless of their religious history. God's laws do not change for those who abandon the contract.
That is a shocking, sobering reality. Divine protection can be instantly revoked. It tears down the culture of complacency and false hopes so many groups hold on to.
It's a severe warning.
It is. But considering how strict this conditional equation is, how can humans possibly maintain this strict covenant given all the temptations in life?
That is the ultimate human dilemma. To answer that, we have to ask what truly motivates human discipline when nobody else is watching.
Fear of getting caught.
Close, but deeper. This brings us to the concluding rhythm of the verse, and fear me alone, or in Arabic, wa iyaya farhabun. We have to analyze the linguistic brilliance here.
Okay, break down the grammar for us.
The phrasing intentionally places the object, me, before the verb, fear. Grammatically, this mandates absolute exclusivity. It means you are restricted to fearing only the Creator.
Wow, the grammar itself enforces the theology.
Yes, and we also need to carefully distinguish the word used here. This is not ordinary fear, like the instinctual cough you feel when you see physical danger.
Right, like running from a bear.
Exactly. The word here is Rahbah. This is awe. It is a profound fear, beautifully mixed with reverence, majesty, and deep knowledge. This specific type of awe doesn't paralyze you. It actively drives you toward the Creator and restrains you from betraying the covenant.
I want to make sure you listening really grasp this linguistic nuance. By placing me before the verb, the specific phrasing grammatically blocks you from fearing anything else in the world.
It shuts the door on worldly fear.
It's incredibly powerful. But why is this specific command of awe placed at the very end of the verse, after favor and covenant?
Well, think about this. What happens when love and gratitude simply aren't enough to keep a promise during a severe crisis?
You break the promise.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The verse outlines a complete psychological cycle. It starts with remembering the favor, which creates love and gratitude. That's your first motive to fulfill the covenant.
Gratitude is the spark.
Right. However, human nature is incredibly weak, and societal pressures are high. So awe acts as a crucial safety valve at the end. But there's an even more profound concept here regarding this fear.
What's that?
Fearing the Creator alone actively liberates the human being from all otherworldly fears. If your awe is locked exclusively on the divine, you are instantly freed from the fear of poverty, fear of unjust rulers, and fear of societal judgment.
That is a beautiful paradox. Restricting your fears strictly to the Creator is actually the ultimate document of human liberation.
It makes you untouchable.
It really does. So how do this sequence of concepts, memory, gratitude, covenant, awe, apply to building human character overall?
To understand its application, ask yourself, how do you build a sturdy house that can withstand a hurricane?
You need a solid foundation and a specific sequence of construction.
Exactly. What we've just walked through is the Quranic methodology for building a perfectly balanced human personality.
Step by step.
Yes. It starts at the foundation by invoking pure roots. Then, it activates the heart by generating gratitude. Next, it establishes the load-bearing walls through the moral framework of the covenant.
And the roof.
Finally, it crowns the entire structure with the spiritual motive of exclusive awe. I must reiterate, this isn't just past history. It is an act of law. It forces us to ask, do we attribute success to ourselves? Do we break covenants for material gain? Is our awe of God greater than our fear of worldly loss?
Looking at it as a blueprint, the perfect symmetrical architecture of this methodology is astounding. It covers the past, present, and psychological future of a person.
It leaves nothing out.
It really doesn't. Now, let's gently shift the focus. What happens when we zoom out from the individual and look at entire civilizations?
When you zoom out, you have to ask a terrifying question. What truly destroys an empire?
Most history books would say economics or war.
Right. But this verse delves deep into the philosophy of history within the Qur'an. It teaches us that history isn't random, and it's not purely driven by material or military power.
It's driven by something else.
Yes. Fundamentally, human history is a moral history. It is entirely governed by the strict laws of loyalty and betrayal of the divine covenant.
So morality dictates history.
Exactly. When you look at the collapse of civilizations in the Revelation, their ruin is rarely due to a lack of resources. It is always preceded by a profound, systemic moral collapse.
Like what?
Normalized injustice, deep-seated corruption, systemic fraud, enslaving people. Breaking the moral covenant strips away divine protection, exposing the nation to harsh universal laws.
That is shocking. Economic or military ruin is merely a symptom. The root cause of societal collapse is always a breached moral contract.
The economy failing is just the final domino.
That is a chilling paradigm shift. So, what is the hidden danger of living in long periods of peace and prosperity if it's all about this moral contract?
To understand that hidden danger, ask yourself, have you ever been perfectly healthy for so long that you completely stopped appreciating your health right until you got sick?
Oh, absolutely. We all take it for granted.
Well, this verse actively cures a very dangerous psychological and social disease known as favor habituation. This is when you get so deeply used to your blessings that they entirely lose their value.
They just become the baseline.
Right. Living in prolonged material abundance creates a false sense of absolute security. It makes humans arrogantly forget that these blessings are conditional contracts, and that is why awe is introduced here. It shakes this false stability and keeps the heart in a state of positive caution.
Favor habituation. I want to highlight that because it's a highly relevant modern psychological trap that the Revelation diagnosed centuries ago.
It really is a timeless diagnosis.
So how does this ancient diagnosis apply directly to our modern, hyper-advanced world today?
To see the application, simply look at the smartphone in your hand, and then look at the daily news. Let's project these implications onto contemporary reality.
Okay.
Today, we have massive, unprecedented material and technological progress. These are undeniably immense divine favors. But the critical question is, has our moral progress matched it?
I think the daily news answers that with a hard no.
Exactly. Humanity has largely failed its covenant. We have weaponized our blessings for exploitation, weapons of mass destruction, wealth inequality, and environmental destruction.
It's a massive betrayal.
And this moral betrayal is directly connected to the modern epidemic of anxiety, turmoil, and fear of the future. Why? Because humanity replaced its awe of the Creator with an awe and terrifying fear of its own creations. We fear war, economic crashes, pandemics.
Wow. That is a profound realization for you listening right now. The pervasive modern anxiety and dread are direct symptoms of a broken cosmic contract and a completely misplaced compass of awe.
We fear the world because we stopped fearing the Creator.
Exactly. But in the face of this massive global moral failure, is there any hope or reassurance?
Well, when you look at the wreckage, you have to ask, if a contract is completely broken, can it ever be renegotiated?
Can it?
Yes. This is where we find a message of immense hope encoded in the words, "I will fulfill yours." This is an invitation to absolute trust in divine justice.
Even in today's world?
Especially today. In a world defined by political and personal betrayals, the divine covenant remains the only solid, unmoving rock. If an individual or society corrects its course back toward justice, the divine response is absolutely guaranteed.
That is deeply comforting. In a chaotic world, knowing that your moral effort is a guaranteed, absolutely insured investment with the Creator, it's just incredible.
It liberates you from despair entirely.
It really does. But practically speaking, taking on this contract, is this a solo journey or does it require a team?
Think about a single brick trying to hold up a massive roof without any mortar or surrounding structure. What happens to it?
It gets completely crushed.
Exactly. And if we analyze the grammar of the verse, we notice the deliberate use of the plural in all the commands. Remember, fulfill, fear. The grammar itself proves that responsibility is fundamentally collective.
It requires solidarity.
Yes. The whole society must actively work together to keep the collective memory alive and create an environment that fosters awe and piety. When collective awareness is lost, individuals face the crushing weight of covenant breaking alone. Social structures crack, and the nation loses its purpose.
This is such a crucial insight. You cannot easily uphold a divine contract if your society actively isolates you or normalizes betrayal.
It's nearly impossible to do it entirely alone.
So, as we wrap up this sweeping analysis, what is the final, ultimate takeaway from this sweeping verse?
To find the ultimate takeaway, I want you to look in that mirror we talked about at the very beginning.
Okay, looking in the mirror.
Verse 40 of Surah Al-Baqarah is not just a window looking backward into history. It is a reflecting mirror for human self-interaction with the Creator right now. It establishes the absolute rules of engagement with life itself.
What are those rules?
3 things. A living memory that refuses to forget the favor. A free will that actively chooses to fulfill the covenant. And a living heart that directs its awe only toward the Creator.
Memory, will, and heart.
Yes. This system rescues humanity from being hopelessly lost in the material world. It elevates us from mere consumers to true stewards. The Qur'an is providing robust laws for building a life and evaluating a civilization. It remains a guiding light for all times.
I really want to cement that profound realization. The Revelation doesn't offer stories for entertainment, but robust, timeless laws for civilizational and personal survival.
It's a survival guide, honestly.
It truly is. I want to sincerely thank you for this incredibly profound and logical explanation of the verse today.
It's my pleasure, really.
To summarize our main points for you listening, we learned today that historical belonging is a heavy responsibility, not a free pass. We saw how remembering divine favors cures the arrogance of our self-made illusions. We explored how the ultimate contract of life is conditional, God's protection requires our active moral commitment. And finally, we discovered that restricting our awe solely to the Creator is the ultimate key to human liberation from worldly anxieties.
Beautifully said.
Thank you. And as we close, I want to leave you with a profound philosophical question to ponder. If the history of human collapse is purely a history of broken moral contracts, what is the exact state of the covenant you are currently writing with your life today?
That's a heavy question to walk away with.
That's it for this episode of Insights. If you found this reflection helpful, follow the show and join us next time as we continue verse by verse in the Qur'an. Until then, take one idea from this verse into your day.